flag. Oh my God. You know how many millions of people have been killed because of that American flag? It is the flag of communism. There never would have been communism without the American government putting Trotsky into Russia. Everything about America is a fraud. So let's grow up, realize we're not what we think we are. We got a chance here to be real people, real men and women, for the first time ever. We got to overthrow this stinking government. It's a racket. It's a con job. It's a vicious, mass murdering machine. And now they're ready to mass murder us with these stinking drones. So drone operators, watch out, boy. If we find out who you are, we're going to kill you, because you are the enemy. And anybody who authorizes you to kill us with your drones, going to kill them too. Let's grow up. Let's get real here. We're in deadly danger.
Now,
we're not doing it.
One of the things that's happened, there's a number of states that they've got, and about 140,000 people here in Texas want to secede. But in Texas, or maybe the one state that has the history and the laws to pull that off. But the local control, if we can return local control, even if it's a county, even if it's a town, even if it's the block that people are in. I talk about Liberty Village a lot, and but a Liberty Village could be created in your neighborhood, on your block, if you got out and talked to your people and met your neighbors. But they've isolated us, and the internet does that too. It isolates us. We don't go out and shake hands. We don't meet people. We don't look people in the eye and say, do you realize what's happening? Do you realize they're coming to kill you? Do you realize that this is a criminal government that is doing this to you? But we don't do that. We don't do that. We sit and snipe and find fault with people over the internet. Anybody like me that's trying to do something, trying to bring people like you up, trying to bring some kind of source of sanity here. And whether it's Jews or Christians that think the Jews are the chosen people, they're all deluded, they're all deceived. And the only thing about the Constitution and our founding fathers is that they did oppose the New World Order of their day, and they even started it outright with the Confederation of States. You're right about the Constitution. That just helped empower them, but the Patrick Henry made sure the Bill of Rights was included, and that's what's under attack right now. They don't need to attack the Constitution because they've already violated that with by allowing a private bank to issue our money, and Thomas Jefferson warned us about that. Alexander Hamilton was the banker's man within our founding fathers, and I believe Burr killed that son of a bitch, huh?
Yeah, I want to remind your listeners that under the Articles of Confederation, we didn't need the Bill of Rights because the government was not a threat. The federal government was not good. I mean, you might have problems with the state government, and that's going to be significant enough. You got to deal with the human nature of wanting to rule people. So you always have to worry about this, but you definitely don't want to give power to a federal government. But when these guys came up with this Constitution, some of the other guys, like as you say, Henry and George Mason and Lee, he said, well, where are our rights mentioned? And Hamilton said, well, you don't have to worry about that. Madison said, we don't have to worry about that. We'll take care of your rights. Well, no. We have to see, so the Bill of Rights, it was put in to protect us from the Constitution. That's what we have to get. The Constitution is the threat. Now, going back to Texas, I just want to remind your listeners what happened about a year ago, or maybe a year and a half. Texas said they didn't want to have TSA feeling up people in the airports and running their cancer machines and their nude comics machines. So they said, we want them out. And Eric Holder, the communist, and Obama, the communist, said if you even consider doing that, we're going to turn Texas into a no-fly zone. We won't allow any air traffic into or out of Texas, and they'll use they had jet fighters ready to turn Texas into no-fly zone, and the Texas legislature backed down. They were persuaded to back down by this CIA agent who is the deputy, what do you call it, the deputy governor, vice, whatever, the lieutenant governor of Texas. He's a CIA guy named Dewhurst. Rich man, cutting horses, pretends like he's a cowboy. He's a CIA communist, and he persuaded, through blackmail and arm twisting, the legislature to rescind this order to eject TSA from Texas. So my point is that the politicians cannot save us. We have to reject this politician deal and stop looking to sheriffs and politicians and elected officials to save us from the communists in the federal government.
Now, again, I have, I tried to start the militias there. We had 40 or 50 people initially, and as it degenerated after Oklahoma City, if somebody asked me about the militia, my response was, if there's more than if there's 10 or more, one of them is a Fed trying to set you up, and I just we're just getting the information. I put that up on my Facebook page that these trolls on the internet are being paid and sponsored by the CIA or the Cenarium from Israel. So every meeting, just about every meetings that I've had, if we had more than 10 people, there were a couple of Jews in there going, oh, well, he shouldn't be doing this, he shouldn't be running this, he shouldn't be here, we need to get rid of him. So how do you, I mean, you've got so many of these traitors that are spying, that they think we are the rebel. I don't think we're the rebels here. I think we are trying to, restore some kind of sanity and liberty here. And anybody, I've said that the whole war on terror, that's a war against anyone, anywhere that opposes one world government of the bankers. What about that?
You're breaking up pretty bad there, Clay. I can kind of understand what you're saying. As far as security, we got to grow up, be grown-ups here, and realize that anybody that would betray us to the government, as a spy or a provocateur or whatever, has got to be killed. I mean, we're in this deadly struggle now for our lives, so we cannot tolerate the Trockmans. Say, the Trockmans up there in Montana. I was part of that deal for a few months till I found out the Trockmans with the militia of Montana was a federal sting operation. So these types of people, and they're, as you say, you get three guys together, one of them's going to be Fed or a cop. So we've got to be ruthless in protecting our families and ourselves by readiness to wipe out spies and provocateurs. That's just the way it always is in any revolutionary organization. And we have to be revolutionaries. We have to overthrow this corrupt, stinking thing called the federal government. We've got to overthrow it. Can't try to modify it. It's got to be rejected and start over. And just as the Declaration of Independence says you have to do every so often. It's just human nature.
What about the banks? I mean, right now, trying to finance the revolution, I can barely eat, and I couldn't do that if it wasn't for the stinking Social Security. So because I can't How do you organize? I'm blocked in libraries. The show is blocked at time after time and time again.
Yeah, I'm losing. I don't have much contact here with you, but
I can hear you fine. We can hear you fine. Your sound is coming in. They're breaking mine up.
Okay, it'll start with the roadblocks and home invasions, and maybe I don't think it's going to start with drones killing people, but it's going to start with the Brandon Robb sort of experience. I mean, again, let's not forget 20,000 guys a year in Virginia alone. I don't know how many are across the United States are being picked up, but we're going to have to start the revolution by killing anybody who would come for us, or our guns, or our kids, or our pets, or our cars, or whatever. We're going to have to say no and mean it. And you only mean it by shooting people who want to violate you. Anybody who wants to violate you got to be killed. Was the criminal trying to get into your house with a crowbar, like that gal did? Or some guy in a cop uniform? Doesn't matter. I mean, the sheriff here, he put up with my speech the other day about gun control, and he finally, was outraged, stood up and denounced me, and stuck out. And I wasn't even talking about him, because I was just saying, with a warrantless home invasion, he chose to twist it and make it sound as if I'd said, if you try to come to my house with a warrant, I'll kill you. No, I said if it's a warrantless home invasion, what we see every day in this country, the only way to deal with it is like 5 rounds of buckshot zinging down the hallway. Oh, he thought that was horrible. Well, I'm sorry, but that's how we're going to deal with this. That's how the revolution is going to start. You don't have to have money. You don't have to have, I'd like to raise a bunch of money from overseas, probably. I'm trying to raise money from anybody overseas, governments, because I don't know if there's enough money here right now amongst the people. But we can start it with fighting back. When these steroid addicts pull pregnant gals out of cars and beat them up, slam them face down into the concrete, and put handcuffs on them and sit on their necks. Well, these guys got to be found and shot. There's no way to deal with this other than to kill these guys. These are monsters. That's how the revolution is going to start. We got to, let's get tough. We're Americans. That has not been a very honorable thing for as long as we've been alive, but we can make it an honorable thing. We can turn this thing around. Because we got the guns, we got the guts, we got the brains. The only question is, do we have the will? And I say we do. I think there's plenty of us that have the will to defend ourselves.
There are answers for our economy, and I'm going to be touching on them in the next article that I do. One of them is to restore hemp. I mean, we had 2 states that did it. We got 16 states that they want to regulate it and feed the doctors. I mean, to hell with paying a doctor to give me a prescription for something that God gave me. I just don't see that. I think the doctors are part of our big problem. And maybe overseas is the way to go. There's people overseas that realize that American veterans and American intelligence may be the thing that we need to turn this around, not just in this country, but all over the world. I mean, if you're going to set your sights higher, we might as well set our sights to take over the whole new world order and run it for the benefit of the people or the individuals, not the collective. And that's the bullshit that the communists use. I mean, if communism was what it was cracked up to be, I might be all for it, power to the people and all that shit. But it's not. It's not. Communism was started by the bankers. It was funded by the bankers, and the bankers. I mean, it's like Carl Clayton said. If you print your very own money, pretty soon you can buy up the whole neighborhood. And that's where we're at right now. And there's one of the other things. If we could grow hemp again in this country, we could restore at least we can make enough rope to hang these son of a bitches. And the other thing is, there is some new technology out there that I think is encouraging, and that's 3D printing. You can use a printer and a computer to make your own gun, for instance. Have you heard about that?
Oh, sure. I've heard about the 3D printing. I'm not sure how it works. It seems like a dream. I think the materials at this point, I guess there's fairly strong plastics. They can produce lower receivers, things that don't take too much pressure, aren't subjected to the pressure of the cartridge going off, like the chamber of the barrel. And some of them last a long time. But really, computer numerically controlled machining is essentially that sort of thing in steel.
Yes.
And we have to be ready to start turning out. I mean, I was making Thompson submachine guns. I'd buy 80% machined M1 Thompson submachine gun receivers and get a friendly machinist to complete them. So I was turning out Thompsons like mad. And that's, we got to think big, man. We got to start turning out, getting guns. The problem today is ammunition, as you well know.
Ammunition that's right. That's somebody said they went into Walmart and there wasn't any ammo in the place.
Yeah, I mean, we got a serious problem. And I called for manufacturers to refuse to sell to government. And by gosh, I don't know if anybody heard about it, but they started saying, no, if you're involved in gun control, we're not interested in your business. So that's encouraging, but we got a huge backlog of ammunition orders, and this is war. This is how they're going to try to disarm us, and it's working, I think, to some extent. These idiots at Knob Creek, these machine gun shoots, I mean, they've been burning up ammunition like there's no tomorrow. It's just a scandal, and they better stop doing that. It's harder to make a cartridge than it is to make a ballpoint pen. We have to appreciate the value of these cartridges, regardless of the caliber, and save them, and start using them against the government, not burning up tons of it on nothing. So let's grow up and stop wasting this precious ammunition.
And they encourage that. They also encourage you to be afraid rather than, if you're afraid, then it's hard to find answers. They don't, I just want to stay below the radar. I just don't want to call attention to myself. How many times have we heard that in the militia movement?
I don't want to call attention to myself?
Yeah. I want to stay below the radar. I'm afraid. I'm just afraid.
Yeah, I know. Well, but everybody has to make a contribution. You don't have to be a gunfighter. You don't have to be a money man. But you got to do something. Forget the militia, because that was something I started just because of the wording of the Second Amendment back in the 80s to jam this Second Amendment up the government's rear end. Now we just have the resistance, or we don't even have to call it anything. It's just the people rising up against this nasty bunch of communists. But everybody's going to have to make a contribution. He or she is going to have to do something. Doesn't have to be fighting, but it might be moral support, if nothing more than that. That's what we demand now from the people. Everybody has to do something. Still there?
Yes, sir. I'm just getting a cup of coffee here. Hang on just a second. Yeah, I just had to warm my coffee up, bud. the contribution, you know, I've been doing the show for 20 years. I used to get a lot of support when I was on shortwave. On the internet, I haven't got any support. I've been offering my books for just a donation. Just send a donation. I'll send you a 500-page book that sells for $40. And I don't get any donations. I don't get any donations. Nobody, it's like nobody wants to chip in. Nobody wants to help. You can't do this for free. And the people that have come out that supposedly wanted to help have done more damage than they did good. And, you know, it's like, who am I doing this for? Who are we doing this for? Who do we want to save? You know, maybe, and of course this came from John Trockman, who said, fuck them, Clay. They're going to get the government they deserve. So, I mean, that could be a Fed attitude, but it's really speaking the truth about these people that we're supposed to be defending. They can say nice things about us in the chat room, but they don't send a goddamn dime. They don't chip in. And if it wasn't,
they haven't seen the power yet. They haven't seen any place to send it that they think will probably, you know, be useful and significant. So that's what we have to start, and not with an organization, which will inevitably be infiltrated, but with action. You know, we got this wonderful thing called Anonymous. I don't know, you know, who they are, obviously, because they're anonymous, but they have the right idea. They're action oriented. They hack into the government and banking and industrial computers that have been companies and organizations that have been communistic or oppressive, and we have to, you know, we have to coordinate with them. We have to show our power. Nobody's going to support us until you show your power. You look at how Hitler started, or some 6 guys before him started this little tiny party, and Hitler was assigned by the army to investigate the nationalistic groups, and it was a insignificant, impoverished little thing with a few pennies in its coffers, but quickly, with the ability to speak and arouse the emotions and anger of the people, it grew. And it can do the same exact thing here. If you got the right guys talking and acting, you got to have action. And what Hitler did, he had some army guys that would protect him from the Jews and the communists, who were much more powerful in Germany in those days, in 1919, 1920. Much more powerful. But you got to think big. You got to be willing to fight and defend yourself. So that's what we have to do here. We got to understand the Jewish program, be ready to defend ourselves from it, and that means cops. That means against anybody. We got to, you know, we got the same problems today that the Germany had following World War I. We're pretty much bankrupt, just like they were. So we got to study how they did that and emulate it. And by gosh, we can, you know, we're pretty sharp bunch of people if we get our act together. We're just as good as the Germans. So we can do this. We just have to think big and realize that this is a deadly fight. And it's life and death. There's no safe way to do this. There's no legal way to do it. There's no procedural way. We can't get the government to help us. The government's got to go. Okay, so that's pretty much my ideas on the subject.
If the government is gone, though, what do we do? I agree with reaching out to the soldiers, to the veterans. You know, there's no expiration date on that oath that we took. And if we're working for them, then they, that's what we were trained for as soldiers. We were trained to, and I did a piece by somebody said what we need to do is organize like the special forces. If they go into towns, if they go into these towns and villages and organize the people and work for it, what about that? I mean, if we were doing that, wouldn't it work?
If we were doing that, what?
If we were organizing and had ex-special forces or something come in and help organize the people in our towns and our communities and our neighborhoods. Is that a reasonable expectation?
Well, maybe down the road, but first of all, we got to fight. I mean, we've got drones to think about now. We got roadblocks. We've got home invasions to think about. That's the number one on the agenda. We got to capture the imagination of the American people and show that we are ready to defend and go on the offensive. Hezbollah and Hamas, they're doing humanitarian things like you're talking about, but that's years after they were fighting the Jews. First things first, we got to overthrow any tendency in the police or military to kill us. We got to be ready to deal with this, not the humanitarian aspects yet. That could come later. The first thing is we got to fight. Show the people we're serious, and they'll support us. Once they see we're serious, they will support us. We just haven't shown them that yet.
Well, the tactics that they're using are divide and conquer, and they want to, and I feel like this is what's been done to me, and is being done to me right now. They want to isolate me. They want to take any support away I have, any friends that I got away. They want to, and I got them up right here. Oh, Clay Douglas of the Free American Magazine and Mike Harris of Veterans Today, exposed for supporting Nazis. Well, I'd rather support a Nazi than a goddamn communist. At least Hitler had some good ideas, and we had 3 communist countries go against the German people, and they did it with a full-page ad in the New York Times declaring war against the German people. They also had, by the way, and I've got this up on my Facebook page, this 6 million lie has been going on since 1913. Since the Federal Reserve got in, they started pumping. Well, there's 6 million Jews in Ukraine that died. Yeah, there might have been, because they killed 60 million white Christian Russians. And what's wrong with Americans? Do they think it just can't happen here? It is happening here.
20,000 people a year in Virginia picked up for no particular reason and disappeared. Just keep that in mind. That's what's going on.
All right, we're out of time. BJ, thank you. JB, I'm sorry. Thank you for being who you are, being on my show. And any way that we just need to get this message out, folks. You need to get this message out. This show is recorded. This show is up on YouTube. This show will be up on YouTube. Will be up on Facebook in an hour. And I still need money to cover expenses. Make a donation. Get a book. I spent years writing a 500-page book. You can read it tonight for a $20 donation. Jesus Christ. You can't afford that? Go get your 12-pack of beer and sit down and, load your weapon and shoot yourself. J.B. Campbell, thank you for being with me.
Yeah.
Call recording has been completed.